If you're familiar with Boxing Day football statistics, you might recognize this image. This is an image that has been passed around Twitter for quite a few years actually. A lot of people are well acquainted with these scorelines. For example, Fulham 10, Ipswich 1, or Man United losing 6-1 to Burnley of all teams. And if you're autistic like me, you might be thinking, have these results ever shown up before? If you've clicked on this video, you might be familiar with the concept of Storygami, which was invented by John Boyce. Basically, Storygami is collecting every single football result, seeing and checking off which ones have actually happened. This isn't a new concept, and there is already a Premier League Storygami. We can clearly see there is quite an even distribution across the board, like up until 5-5. You know, we've got quite an even spread of results. It is kind of symmetrical in a way, and I guess it kind of makes sense, because not a lot of football matches are you going to see 11 plus goals, which you are once you get to the 6-5 stage or the 7-4 stage and so on. We can actually hover over 7-4 and see that there has only been one occurrence in the Premier League, which happened in 2007, or we can see that's only been one occurrence of 9-1. This is a fun fact. This was Sir Alex Ferguson's very last game in charge of Manchester United, and that was the last time a Storygami has happened in the Premier League with a scoreline of 5-5. Now, what I was wondering was, obviously football didn't begin with the Premier League. Like, the first division existed for 100 years pretty much. So I decided to go through every single first division season. We will get on the naming later, but for now, let's call it the first division. This is the top flight of English football, the very top of the pyramid. I decided to make a very nice looking chart. Please ignore the colours for now. I mainly did the colours to sort of differentiate the different seasons and years that these achievements were recorded in. And as you can see, it's very similar to the Premier League chart actually. It kind of peaks at the 6-6 over here, and then it is symmetrical all the way down, apart from a few missing results. So we're missing 10-2, 11-0, 11-1. Apart from those, oh, and obviously 9-4. Apart from those, it is a symmetrical chart. This is done to the best of my knowledge. I have tried to look at every single scoreline. I'm sure some may have been missed, but this was basically compiled over a couple of hours. It surprises no one that all of these here are filled. I mean, in the very first Premier League season, you would expect a 0-0 or a 1-0 result coming pretty much immediately. But actually, it took a little bit of time to get a 0-0. It didn't happen until like September or October in the 1888 Premier League season. And actually the very first results were 2-0 to West Brom against Stoke, 5-2 Preston North End, and Derby winning 6-3 against Bolton. These are actually like some very not usual storylines from the very first season. So if we look on the Premier League side, 6-3 has only ever happened 8 times, and a 5-2 has happened about 50 times. There's definitely already a precedent for these goals happening more and more in the earlier seasons. We've had 2 instances, that's what this little 2 here means, by the way. We've had 2 instances of teams winning 12-0. And that's not something that you're probably ever going to see in the Premier League, mainly because nowadays you don't actually really play the full 90 minutes. I mean, they try to rectify it with added on time, like 10 minutes injury time, but on average I believe it's around 66 minutes of football time actually being played. So cramming 12 goals in there, I mean, what, it's like pretty much 1 goal every 5 minutes, right? It's a bit too much to ask for. I mean, you can obviously have massive turnarounds. I mean, I'm recording this just one day after the final day of the season when Crystal Palace scored 2 goals against Liverpool in 2 minutes, but one of them was ruled offside by VAR. So the game actually only ended up finishing 2-1 to Liverpool instead of 2-2. And I think that might be the reason why modern football probably won't see another Storigami, at least not for a very, very long time. There's obviously a number of issues. It's not just VAR's fault, and it's not just the amount of minutes that are played in a single match. But I think back in, in 1888 or whatever, they had very different rules about offside. And I think that would probably contribute a lot to the amount of goals that are scored. Looking at the Wikipedia page for the history of the offside rule, it seems that the law in 1866 was to soften the existing rule, which was actually pretty strict. If you look at this in 1863, it says a player is out of play immediately if he is in front of the ball, and therefore he must return behind the ball as soon as possible. If the ball is kicked by his own side past the player, he may not touch or kick it or advance until one of the other side has first kicked it, or one of his own sides is on a level with or in front of him has been able to kick it. Under my interpretation, this is essentially meaning that you cannot pass the ball to anyone in a forward manner. And I think this is left over from rugby, because in rugby, you always pretty much have to pass it sideways or backwards in order to advance. But nowhere does it say that you can't pass the ball to someone who is beyond a defender. So I wonder if it's fine to pass the ball backwards or sideways, even if a defender of the opposite team isn't there or anywhere near it. So I guess as long as you don't kick the ball forwards, that's pretty good, right? But there was actually a rule in 1866 to soften it, which basically states when a player has kicked the ball, any one of the same side who is nearer to the opponent's goal line is out of play. So this is pretty similar, but I think this basically allows to kick the ball forwards, but only if there are 3 opponents between the player and the goal. So, and this is where the thinking for the current offside rule kind of comes from, is because it's all about the defender and the person on the team, let's say a striker. As long as the striker isn't ahead of the defender, it's fine. So I guess as long as there's 3 defenders, you can kick the ball forwards as much as you like. I'm not sure if these rules would necessarily mean more goals. I think it maybe could. Reading these rules, I think you would predict less goals, but all it is saying that you can't pass the ball. Maybe back then the striker was just traveling with the ball by himself. Maybe that's what happened. It seems like a lot of people really didn't like the offside rule. Like in 1876, Barnes FC proposed that the offside rule should be removed altogether. That would be insane. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Let's go back to the funny chart and why this is so fascinating. As everyone knows, and as I have already stated, the last Premier League Storigami was the 5-5 that occurred in 2013. Did you know the last Storigami, if we were to include the entire history of the First Division, actually took place in 1958, where Tottenham Hotspur won 10 goals to 4 goals playing Everton. 10-4. That is an insane number of goals. If I did my research properly, then that means no football side has ever scored more than 14 goals in a single match. assuming we play 90 minutes of football, 14 goals means 1 goal every 6.4 minutes. So like 6 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever. There is a goal happening, which I think is a little bit absurd. I also collected data on the second division, which is, again, the name changed. So the first division is the top tier, is now known as the Premier League. The second division actually became the first division, but it is still the second step in the football pyramid. I'm just gonna call it the second division to make it more nice. Just know when I'm saying the second division, yes, I know it was called the first division once the Premier League was founded, and now it is known as the Championship. So I actually got onto doing these statistics because I made a little mistake. I logged 10-2 as a first division result, and it wasn't until later on that I realized it's actually a second division result. And this is because two teams with completely nonsense names, and I'm sure no one's ever heard of these two teams. So Small Heath won 10-2 against Ardwick. Why haven't I heard of these teams, Eden? Well, the answer's pretty simple. Small Heath is now Birmingham City, and Ardwick are now known as Manchester City. And then I realized that these two teams were not in the first division back when this Storigami happened. They were actually in the second division. So I went down a little rabbit hole and I wondered what else the second division has done that the first division hasn't. Well, one thing that really strikes out to me immediately is this 13-0 that happened in the 1946-1947 season. And that was the last time a Storigami happened in the second division. So what have we learned? It's pretty unlikely that we will ever see another Premier League Storigami. This result, this 6-6, this is really bothering me. This is such an achievable result in the Championship, but no one has done it yet. I mean, it's still 12 goals over 90 minutes, and like I said, we're playing less minute, but a goal every 7.5 minutes. That's pretty crazy, right? So I just wanted to show off these little graphs that I made. And I just wanted to let you know how insane Storigami is. And that's it. I mean, I can quickly scroll through these results that I have come up with on the left. And I wrote down the first division ones only, unfortunately, and just the first occurrence that they happened. As you can see, right at the bottom, Tottenham Hotspur 10-4, 1958. But we've also got Blackpool 8, Charlton 4. We've got Middlesbrough 10, Sheffield United 3, Leicester 6, Arsenal 6. And this 7-2 result by Derby and Bury in 1896. That is an insane year. Let me just get this up. So in 1935-36 season, we had a 7-2 in Middlesbrough, a 7-2 at Liverpool, 7-2 at Sunderland, 7-2 at Leeds, an 8-1 at Wolves, a 7-2 at Sunderland, and another 7-2 at Sunderland. We had 6 7-2s in that season, and I think that's really funny considering in the Premier League we've only had 5 and they had like 6 in one season. But yeah, I think that's it. That's all I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you found this interesting. I'll see you guys later. Bye everyone.